Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. We have regrets this evening from Councillor Alan Elgar and no others. And Council, I'll look to you for any declarations of pecuniary interest. Thank you. Perhaps we could have a mover and a seconder resolve in a committee of the whole. Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Khan, all in favor? Opposed, if any? We are resolved into committee of the whole. We have no consent items. However, we do have a public hearing, which occasions the reading of the public hearing advisory, which is, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submission to the Town of Oakville in respect of a proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and or plan of subdivision or condominium, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Town Council to the Ontario Municipal Board and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. And with that, we will look for Brenda Stan for a presentation on the public hearing, and we're all ears, Ms. Stan.
Good evening, Mayor Burton and members of Council. Tonight I'm here to present the recommendation report for a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment submitted by the Region of Halton for the Boyne Trunk Sanitary Sewer Line and a general amendment to permit utilities and services within future public streets, which have been approved through the Environmental Assessment Process and Planning Act process in North Oakville. The Boyne Sanitary Sewer begins at the intersection of 3rd Line and Dundas. The proposed line continues north along the future 3rd Line right-of-way, east of the future hospital site, and then turns west along the southern boundary of the town's future park. The line runs diagonally through the park along McCraney Creek and then continues north where the trunk sanitary sewer tunnels underneath the Glenarchy Conservation Area and Highway 407. The sewer line continues north of Highway 407 but is permitted under the current zoning bylaw for that area. The North Oakville West secondary plan specifically permits the trunk sanitary sewer. While reviewing other water and wastewater sites in North Oakville, Halton Region has identified 4 sites where the early installation of regional services proposed within future rights-of-way could potentially create a zoning bylaw amendment requirement in North Oakville bylaw. Generally, the sites include a portion of the water main along the north alignment of Burnhamthorpe Road, a wastewater line along Dundas Street, and servicing connections associated with the North Oakville pumping station and the Boyne Trunk Sanitary Sewer Line. Maps of these sites are included in your report. All of these sites are proposed to be located within future rights-of-way and have been subject to the environmental assessment process. The Boyne Trunk Sanitary Sewer and 4 sites are all zoned as ED, existing development. In the existing development zone, service and utilities are permitted within public streets. The early installation of services and utilities in future public streets would not be permitted. Therefore, a site-specific amendment is proposed to permit the Boyne Trunk Sanitary Sewer, and as 4 sites have already been identified, but more be planned in the future, it's important to have infrastructure in place prior to development. A general amendment is proposed to permit services and utilities within future public streets that have been approved through the Planning Act and Environmental Assessment process. The recommendations are that the zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by the Region of Halton for a site-specific amendment to the North Oakville zoning bylaw to permit the Boyne Trunk Sanitary Sewer be approved, that the zoning bylaw amendment to permit services and utilities approved through the EA or Planning Act process in future public streets within the existing development zone be approved, and that bylaw 2011-073 be passed. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you very much for the information and the report. Council, do you have questions? Thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe we have a delegation who'd like to bring information for Council's consideration.
Yes, we have Ms. Diane Burton here to speak on behalf of the Friends of Glenarchy Oakville.
Good evening, Ms. Burton. Welcome to the meeting, and Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you, Mayor Burton and Council. I'd like to read you the delegation. It's on behalf, well, I'll just begin now, to the Planning and Development Council. I would like to take this opportunity of the invitation to the public to comment on the zoning bylaw amendment application that proposes to permit a sanitary trunk sewer from Dundas Street 3rd Line to Highway 407 on behalf of the members of our group, the Friends of Glenorchy, and also as a member of the Board of Directors of Oakville Green Conservation Association. The president of Oakville Green, Liz Benion, is on vacation for a few weeks, but will submit further comment to the application to you in the near future. Our environmental groups have a special interest in preserving as much as possible the ecosystem of the nature lands within the Glenorchy Conservation Area. We are hopeful that with proper regard to this important area of Oakville's Indigenous natural heritage will be preserved for future generations. The location and impact of trenching sewers through this area was of great concern to us, and our groups became involved in discussions with the region of Halton regarding the imposition of this project on the habitats of Glenorchy Conservation Area. As the planning process proceeded, accommodation of the natural environment of this area was given particular attention by our region, with a species at risk study being commissioned and thoroughly conducted by Dillon Consultants. Numerous alterations were undertaken as documented in the report before you, and as the planning outcome has resulted in the lightest footprint possible for this infrastructure development within the nature lands. In addition to the discussion notes, which I have from a meeting with Halton Public Works, the following alterations from the original planning document were made. The sewer pipes will be installed via tunneling, and no trenching will take place within the Glenorchy Conservation Area. The sewer pipes will cross Glenorchy Conservation Area with a length of approximately 0.4 kilometers and not 1.08 kilometers. The sewer pipes are relocated away from the tree and woodlots. The sewer pipes do not cross any areas with in which species at risk are located, as listed in the species at risk inventory. The sewer pipes will be tunneled at a depth above the aquitard, so the tunneling will not fracture the aquifer below and disperse and alter the location of the groundwater. The sewer pipes will be constructed with impediments to water flow outside the pipes so that groundwater will not be redirected to flow along the underground tunnels. There will be no roads as access roads along the sewer tunnels in the Glenorchy Conservation Area. This eliminates the possibility of vehicle traffic with the resultant impacts of lights, noise, vibrations, and pollution on the wildlife species sensitive to such disruption. We appreciate this opportunity to thank very much the many people at Halton Region involved in this wastewater management project at Public Works, who collaborated with their expertise and knowledge to bring a planning solution that alleviated our concerns for the environment, and to comment to our Town Planning and Development Council on the excellent outcome in planning this project. Our Halton Region Chair, Mr. Gary Carr, the wastewater planning management team, the wastewater project staff, the project manager, Mr. Mickey Liu, the biologist, Mr. Michael Enright of Dillon Consultants, and the staff members of Conservation Halton were all very helpful and considerate to our concerns. In conclusion, we would like the Planning and Development Council of Oakville to know that we as citizens appreciate very much that this project of infrastructure mitigation within the natural heritage system has been carefully considered, and negative potential impact upon the biodiversity and ecosystem of sewers in the Glenorchy area has been extremely diminished as to be minimal as possible. But this report, this letter that I'm submitting to you, only applies to the first item in the agenda. I was not aware that you would be approving as well the impact to streets, because we only thought we would be commenting to the solutions afforded to the Boyne sewer. But now it seems that there's a second item in which the the public streets seem to be getting approval, and I can assure you we do not agree with approving streets through the Glenorchy Conservation Area. So I don't know how do we separate these two items.
Do you have any more information for us?
No, that is all the information I have concerning the Boyne Sewer application.
All right. So thank you very much for your information.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public with information for council? Seeing none. All right, council, how do you wish to proceed? Don't rush the microphone. Councillor Adams.
Are there any staff responses to those particular comments?
All right, does this item before us approve any streets in the Glenorchy Nature Preserve?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, it does not. And on page 7 of the staff report, and as per the plan that Ms. Dan had showed, it does indicate the location of the 4 sites that are being proposed for the regional infrastructure, and none of those, each of these sites are zoned ED, existing development, and are the locations of future development as proposed under the secondary plan. This is simply a matter of timing, of advancing the infrastructure works in advance of the specific development applications.
Thank you. I'm sure that council and the delegate appreciate the clarification. Anybody else? Wait, Councillor Khan.
May I still ask a question of staff?
Of course.
I see here that part of the project is tunneling and part is open cut trench. Why is that? Do they expect to find water where we're going to be doing open cut?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, that's not my understanding. I don't think they're concerned about that. It's more, I think it's more a matter of cost from the region's perspective. Obviously, there's a need to bore under the Glenorchy Conservation lands due to their environmental sensitivity. The other lands, which are under 6th Line and through the future park, these are lands that ultimately will be disturbed and will be rehabilitated upon the installation of the services. But from an economics perspective, it does make more sense to open cut and install the services as opposed to boring underground in those locations.
Just with respect to the environmental impact, and maybe this is premature right now, but do you know what type of shoring they'll be using, whether it's slide rail or is that too technical at this point?
I'm sorry, I'm not privy to that information.
All right, thanks.
Ms. Close, you may wish to respond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a representative from the region here who may be able to answer that question specifically. But all of those issues, the balancing between the open cut and the different methods of construction would have been dealt with through the environmental assessment that the region would have undertaken for the pipe itself.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll look for a motion. And I'll look. Councillor Lapworth.
I'll be happy to move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Lapworth moves the staff recommendation. Discussion, separation, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is adopted. All right, now, council, we have completed our public agenda with that, but we do have a confidential item, and I would look for a motion for the following: that this committee resolve into closed meeting session for the purpose of dealing with a matter pertaining to litigation or potential litigation and solicitor-client privilege with respect to confidential discussion item C1. Councillor Knoll, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Madam Clerk, would you please arrange the chamber for a meeting closed to the public? All right, council now returns to a meeting open to the public, having been in a meeting closed to the public under a provision of the Municipal Act that permits it, namely dealing with a matter pertaining to litigation or potential litigation and solicitor-client privilege with respect to confidential discussion, item C1, and I can report that council gave instructions to legal staff in accordance with the staff report. Council, we have no advisory committee minutes this evening. A motion to rise and report to council would be in order. Councillor Demoff, thank you very much for that. All in favor? Opposed, if any? I rise and report the Committee of the Whole has met and has made recommendations on public hearing item number 1 and confidential discussion item C1 as noted by the clerk. And a mover and seconder for this report would be welcome. Councillor DeMoff, Councillor Robinson, all in favor? Opposed, if any. The report is adopted. Council, are there any items of new business under the emergency congratulatory or condolence heading? Thank you. How about a motion then for the consideration and reading of the bylaws? Councillor Johnston, Councillor Robinson. This would be the following bylaws: 2011-73, the bylaw to amend the Town of Oakville's North Oakville zoning bylaw 2009-189, and bylaw 2011-081, a bylaw to declare that certain land is not subject to part lot control in the Bronte Creek community, and bylaw 2011-84, bylaw to confirm the proceedings of a meeting of council. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Those bylaws are adopted. That ends our agenda. Thank you for your time and attention. We are adjourned.